Hi, how are you? It's so wonderful to be here. I'm Jolene Ivey. I'm a delegate from District 47, and I'm also as he was saying, I went here. It was wonderful. It was a long time ago. I graduated in 1982, but just for the record, I graduated a semester early, so if you start to calculate my age, please give me a little bit of credit. Not much, but a little bit. I am here to talk about women in elected office. You might notice I'm a woman, and I'm also elected. And it hasn't always been this way. As I told you, I graduated from Towson, but believe me, at the time I was going to school here, I did not participate in student government or any of that. I would probably not have been in this room. I'm sure that I could have found something to do. Well, I won't tell you what I would have found to do, but it probably wouldn't have been as constructive as you are being today. But I really enjoyed my years here, and my plan was journalism, and I did do pretty well at that. I was working at Channel 2 as a television producer, and went on to work for Ben Carton. He was a congressman at that time, as his press secretary. I got married to my husband, Glenn Ivey. We're married now 25 and a half years. And we started having our 5 beautiful boys. So one after the other. I quit work when the first one was born, and I stayed home with them for 16 years. And for almost every one of those 16 years, I had absolutely no intention of running for office. But I did other things. I started an organization called Mocha Moms. It's a support group for at-home mothers of color. One thing that you might not know by looking at me is I'm black, but I definitely don't look that way to most people, yet I still am. And so I really felt a lack of connection to a lot of the moms that I was friends with. I mean, most of them who were home at that time were white, and I was really great friends with them, but they didn't quite make it when it came to certain things. Like, I have 5 boys. You can imagine what it's like raising black boys. It's a little bit different. The expectations are different. The expectations I have for my children, different, because I have to make sure my kids stay alive. So when those white moms will let their kids eat the food in the grocery store and then pay for it at the counter, they'd say, how come you never let Alex do that? Why do you always make him wait until after the food is paid for before you'll let him eat it, a lollipop or whatever? I'd say because one day my kid will be arrested for that. And so I have to teach him something different. I have to teach him to wait and to pay first, even though the people at the store know us, and I know that it's not going to be an issue at the store at this time. But I had to teach him differently. So I started Mocha Moms. It's a support group for at-home mothers of color. We have more than 100 chapters now around the country. I'm very proud of it. And I also got extremely involved in my kids' schools, very active parent, great volunteer, but it really gave me a view as to what we needed to do in our schools to make things better for all kids, not just my kids. And so through that process, when my youngest child finally got to kindergarten, I looked around and said, well, what can I do? How can I use all the information that I've had so far as an at-home mom and as a press secretary and as a producer? What can I do? Well, at this time, my husband was an elected official, and he would come home. He was the state's attorney for Prince George's, so he would come home at night, and we would talk about what was going on in the county, and I figured out we needed some better representatives. And so I started looking for someone else to run. I didn't think of myself. I thought of other people, and I went around trying to find someone else to run who I thought would do a good job, and each one of those people told me no, until the last person said, Jolene, maybe you should do it. And I went home, and I talked to my husband about it, and he told me it was a terrible idea. Because my husband had had an at-home wife all these years, and his life was good. He could work as much as he wanted. He never had to worry about who was taking care of his children. He never had to take off work to take them anywhere or to care for them when they were sick. And he had a pretty good life, and he knew it. So he did not think initially it was a good idea. So I put it on the back burner for a while because I knew I couldn't do it without his support. And one day I had some chicken livers for lunch with a friend, and I think those chicken livers gave me the iron I needed. And when my husband came home that night, one thing is side story, one of our children is an actor, and he had been auditioning for Lion King over and over. He'd get all the way to the end, and then he'd get cut. So everybody had been telling us, what are you going to do if he gets it? And my husband would always say, we're going to find a way, and we're going to make it work. So this time, when my husband came home that night, I said, you know what? When we talk about Julian, we always say we're going to find a way, we're going to make it work. And you know what? We found something I want to do, and we're going to find a way and make it work. So he has, from that moment till this moment, has been 100% behind me, extremely enthusiastic, and it's gone really well. So I'm just finishing my second term as delegate, and now I'm running for lieutenant governor with Doug Gansler. And I was very excited to join his campaign for a lot of reasons, and some of them you will see coming up. But the important thing we need to know right now, where do women stand today in politics? You know, it seems that we meaning women, are a big part of our community. We are more than half the population, and yet we are 24% of the legislators in the United States. That picture is just wrong. You can read through some of this, but you can see that there's only 10 female lieutenant governors and 5 governors nationally. So it doesn't really make sense to me. In Maryland, out of 47 senators, there's 11 women senators. Out of 141 delegates, 46 are women. So that's about 30% of the legislature is women. That's, to me, it's not so good. It's a problem. And the same thing in Congress, it's even worse. 50% of our senators are women, thanks to Barbara Mikulski. And out of 8 Congress people, 1 is a woman. That's Congresswoman Donna Edwards. She's from Prince George's County. So when you look at gender inequality, here are the basic parts of it. One is power. When it comes to power, in order to achieve power in politics, you have to be around a long time, for one thing. And since women didn't even start voting till, I think, about 1921, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't even been able to vote for 100 years. So if you think about the legislature and the history in the legislature, it's been the old boys network for a very long time. And so therefore, the people in power are men primarily, and they promote mostly their colleagues, who mostly are men. In addition to that, material well-being is part of that, which is finances. And when you're running for office, you need money. Also, prestige. Women tend to not have as much prestige as men because, number one, they're not making as much money as men. They don't pursue the same kind of a job track as men tend to. It's getting better, but we're still not there. Women still make about 78 cents on the dollar for a man, so we're still unequal, and it's a problem because it is very important to have women in office. Here are just a handful of things I thought of that have been pursued, and some things have passed and some things have not passed because of women being in office. You know, if we didn't have women in office, there'd be no subsidized child care. We actually need to improve how we subsidize child care to put more money into that, because that's something, it helps women. Women are the ones who are the primary caregivers still. And if we don't have a way to help them take care of their children, they're not able to pursue their jobs. One up from that, Medicaid waiver for older adults. That is a program that's got more than 20,000 people on the waiting list. It's a good thing. It's something that we need, but it's woefully underfunded. And what it does is make it possible for older people to stay in their homes and be cared for in their homes without having to go to a nursing home. So that helps people who are thinking about their parents. You know, my dad was 93 when he passed 2 years ago, and he lived with me and my family for 5.5 years, the last 5.5 years of his life. Fortunately, I was able to kind of pitch in and obviously help him. My children helped, and we were able to do most of it without having to hire someone. But the last couple of months, we did have to hire some help. For people who can't afford to hire that help, what are they going to do? They'd have to put their parent into a nursing home because they have no choice. And that might not be what they want to do. And it's also actually more expensive to be cared for in a nursing home than to be cared for at home through this waiver. But right now, the nursing homes have lobbyists, and the old people don't. They just have me. So I'm going to keep working on that to expand the number of slots that are covered when I'm lieutenant governor. Domestic violence is a big issue, and it's actually one of the issues. The reason that I joined the ticket with Doug Gansler is because he's been a leader on the domestic violence issue. So it's important to me not just to support women candidates, but to support men candidates who are supporting women's issues. It's really important to me, and I hope to you. Breastfeeding in public is an issue. Sometimes breastfeeding can be an issue if you need to pump milk while you're at work so that you can continue to nurse your baby. And all of these issues, equal pay, family leave, earned sick leave, these are issues that are pushed by women. Men get on board in election years. So you will notice, for example, if you were paying attention this year, there were some domestic violence bills that passed, that would not have passed except for the chair of the committee that has to deal with those bills. He's got a woman running against him. He's a little bit worried. Those bills suddenly found some grease. It's amazing. But that's why women have to run. Even if that woman doesn't win, she has lit a fire under his butt, and we got some good bills passed. I'm happy about that. So why do women not pursue public office? You know, generally speaking, we think it's going to be too scary. We think it's going to be too stressful and mean, and we don't want to be a part of it. But it's too important. The stakes are too high for us to stay out. That's how I feel about it anyway. Women are less likely than men to think they're qualified. I didn't think I was qualified. I was an at-home mom. What was I doing thinking about running for office? But it worked out. Women are less likely than men to receive the suggestion to run from office from anyone. So when the person who turned it on me and said, maybe you should run, you know, it took me a little bit to thinking about it before I decided to do it. And I only did it because I had run out of people to ask. Women are still responsible for the majority of child care and household tasks. And that's the reason I couldn't have done it without my husband's help. If he didn't support me, I know I wouldn't be standing here today. Women have the power. 63% of female citizens 18 and older who reported voting in the 2012 presidential election in comparison to 59.7% of their male counterparts. So we actually vote at a higher rate than men. More women are registered to vote than men. But when it comes to money, we can't seem to raise the same amount of money as men. And I'll let you look at the numbers here, but I can tell you that in my own case, even after I was elected, I was a terrible fundraiser. I hated asking for money. It was painful to me. And I finally had to hire a fundraiser to help me. And she did the best thing she could have done. She went through all the Prince George's County delegates who were on Ways and Means, which was my committee, my county, and showed me that when they asked someone for money, that person would give them $500. I could ask that same person for money, and I got $100. Now, over time, that really adds up. And as a result, I was only making maybe $6,000 to $12,000 a year could I raise. It just wasn't enough. By hiring her and having her put those numbers in front of me, it changed how I looked at things. I felt like a bill collector after that, and they owed it to me. So I called those people up, and I said, I want $500. And they'd say, well, I don't know. It's kind of short this year, and, you know, I'm not used to giving you that much. And I'd tell them, no, you're going to give it to me. And I made them, and they did. So I went from raising $6,000 to $12,000 to $67,000 in a year. And it's all because I asked, and I insisted. And that's what women need to do. We need to stop poor-mouthing ourselves. So it is very hard for women to raise money, in fact, but a lot of it is because we put it on ourselves, that we don't think we can do it, and so we don't try. We need to do it, though. But what we need to do is encourage more women to run for office. And even if you don't want to run for office, help someone else, whether it's help them raise money by hosting a fundraiser or door knock for them, which is the single most powerful thing you can do for somebody who's running for office is knock on doors. It's great. That's how I got in. And learn more about what's going on in your local political environment. Because what happens to you on the local level is really more important in some ways to me than what's happening on Capitol Hill. There's things that happen in your community that have a more day-to-day impact on your life. And we got to start somewhere, so you got to get women in office at that level so that they can be the next Nancy Pelosi or Hillary Clinton. So thank you so much. I think that's it. Here we are. For all the women in the audience, ask yourself, are you willing to run for office? And then do it. Thank you so much.